Hello Automators, it's 2019 and the news is not stopping as it relates to the Google Home devices and all of the Google Assistant related devices as well. So let's get going with the latest news, the latest features, and the latest updates for your Google Home and Google Assistant. The first thing I want to talk to you about this week is going to take some doing to get to basically what the story is and what it means to you as someone who owns a device like a Google Home Hub. And this is the device we're talking about right here. And what I think it does is it separates itself from the other smart displays unless Google has an update path for those as well to give to those vendors. Now, here's what I mean. So Google's Fuchsia OS has been confirmed to be able to run Android applications. And why is that so important? And what is Fuchsia OS? And this is what I mean. I got to take some time to get there. Fuchsia OS is expected to be able to be put on to a Google Home Hub right now. So there's some detective work essentially through code and through kind of looking through different components of what Google has released so far. Google's Fuchsia OS is expected to be able to run on this device eventually. It's expected that this is a test device for Fuchsia OS pushes later. Now, again, what does that mean? That means this device eventually could get Android applications running on it. And one of the things that I think a lot of people are upset about when they look at these devices is I can't get a web browser on there. Well, that would mean you could. And on top of that, you can't get access to all the different Android applications. Well, guess what? You could then. So, what I'm saying, guys, is keep your heads up, or basically keep listening here for further developments about Fuchsia OS. It's expected to replace Android, or at least be layered on top of Android and allow you access to a whole much larger set of functions. And if it ends up on devices like the Google Home Hub, it's going to be very, very powerful for us. Something a little bit simpler, way back in 2015, Project Soli it was called. So these were little sensors that basically you didn't have to touch. You could basically wave past them and they sensed what you were doing. So they're a high frequency sensor that can be deployed basically anywhere. And this is kind of what I was starting to talk about in my predictions, and this was before this happened. The FCC has approved their deployment in public on airplanes, all kinds of locations. So Google will now be able to deploy these sensors and allow you to use them. Now, what are they going to do with that? Well, I think this is part of the platform discussion that I had in my predictions video, which I'll put up in the top right corner right now. So I want to tell you a little bit about some results of a survey. Now, actually 2 times a year, Loop Ventures asks all the digital assistants or the voice assistants 800 questions. And when they do that, they give a percentage of how much it understood and then how much it responded correctly to. Now, Google Assistant has essentially run away with this one. They've gotten up to 88% or 87.9% in terms of correct responses. And this is across many indices, as in, local information, commerce, different indices like that. I'll get into those in a minute. But 88%. The next closest is Siri, believe it or not, at 74.5%. And Alexa is a couple percentage points behind that. Now, they tested Cortana. I don't know why, probably for fun, but they did. Now, those other voice assistants are basically understanding you around 99% of the time. Siri's at 99.5 or 99.4%. And the Amazon voice assistant is at 99. Now, Google Assistant literally got 100% for understanding what was being said. Now, what's amazing about this is early in 2017, the Google Assistant was essentially at around that 74% that Siri is now at. So if Siri has that capability of getting that far, well, where's Google going to be in a year or two? You know, those are all the kinds of questions there that I have when I read results like this moving so far ahead just over essentially a year. So just to give you an idea of where Google is really, really strong here, you know, when we look at the commerce indice for the different questions here that were asked, or the different types of questions, Google's capability was at 86%, and the next closest were Siri, and that was at 56%. So that's 30% differential in terms of accuracy. So clearly something these other voice assistants need to work on, or have worked on. The other indice where I saw a lot of gap or a lot of differentiation here in terms of information, and this is obviously going to be Google's strength. What's strange is Siri's was not in that, and the Amazon voice assistant was actually the next closest. So now the other things to note here really, in terms of local information, the Google Assistant was at 95%. Navigation and commerce, or sorry, information rather, those were at 94%. So they're almost getting 100% in those three categories. Where they fall off a little, and this was interesting to me, is command. And I have seen this a little bit. Actually, my HomePod, I would say, has been more capable of following commands. They're at 85%, whereas the Google Assistant is down at 73%, still in second. But if Google fixes that portion of their voice assistant, they'll be upwards of 90 to 95% accuracy with this test come 6 months, which is how often Loop Ventures does that. In case you haven't noticed this or haven't heard this before, there is a new functionality coming for both lists and notes, and it's on some devices, it's not on other devices, it's being deployed differently all over the place. And let me give you an example here. So my Google Home Mini is right here, and it's basically updated as far as it can be. Take a note.
Sorry, I can't take notes yet.
So you can see that device couldn't do it here.
The mic's back on.
Take a note.
Sure, what's the note?
This is great.
Saving note.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it.
So it's expected that you're going to get additional list feature, and this has been something that Google has been missing for a while now. And I expect it to integrate with a number of different list taking services and be just as powerful as what Amazon has right now. Now, a couple things about that little note capability there. These devices are on the same 141.215 firmware version of the application there, basically the cast firmware. So that means that both of these devices should be able to do it if there's not some other indice here that is saying whether or not a device can use it. So there is something else that Google can obviously hold back, because one of my devices has it and one of my devices does not. My smart displays also can't do it yet. We've been hearing little kind of pieces about, you know, the Pixel XL, the Pixel 3 XL, and the Pixel 3. Lots of people were upset about the notch there in that device. Now, the thing that we're seeing is a new Lite version that's expected to come out with less RAM, less of a processor, less overall of a phone, but a Lite version. And what's interesting is the notch seems to be gone. So we're seeing now 3D renders that are out there, and I'll leave that in the description below. You can go ahead and check out those renders if you want to see what this phone looks like. Hopefully you're not one of these people. The Chromecasts right now are actually being hacked by a couple of users, and when you turn on your Chromecast, you might see this screen. And so what's happening here, just so you know, it's not a Chromecast specific thing. This is called universal plug and play, and that's what's being exploited here. So a number of devices are going to have this issue, and it is related to how they connect. And so as a result, it's on Chromecast today, but it could be on a lot of other devices tomorrow if this exploit continues to be used. So not a lot of good, that's not a lot of good news there. I'm sorry to give you that. And there's not really a fix at this point. So I don't know when we'll see a fix. I don't know any of those details, unfortunately, and you could see that showing up on your device. Now, the website that it refers to is actually down right now, so clearly there's some trouble there. Now, moving on, we're about ready to go into CES, and by the time I publish this video, it will be CES 2019. So that gives us the Consumer Electronics Show. That's going to give us a ton of new devices to talk about here on this show, on the channel here. And LG always goes out ahead and they announce some of their devices earlier. So they've announced some sound bars here, and the SL10, YG, and the 8 and the 9 as well in the same series. They will have the Google Assistant on board, so you're going to be able to control those sound bars. There's some special commands there essentially to control the volume on those. So that's great news. The other thing that we've seen is the C by GE set of bulbs, and I have a couple here now in my home that I want to test, but there's a whole new color setup, or a whole new color set of products. There's also a light strip as well, so following suit with other makers, but they also have Google Assistant and Google Home capabilities. A number of countries were expected over the holidays to actually have gotten an update on their Google Home and their Google Assistant related devices to go ahead and make charitable donations. Now that's going to use your payments capability. I'll put the different countries up on the screen, but it's all the kind of the standard players or the standard countries that get the first updates here from Google. All right, guys, that's our latest news updates, all the latest features for the Google Home. I'm really excited actually for the new note-taking and list keeping features. You know, we're still looking for Google Keep to show up there, and hopefully that'll show up here really soon. I can show you how to go through that. Now, later this week, what you're going to see is a fix for Google Home music alarms or media alarms, and that's been a lot of people's problems here. Google hasn't fixed it as of yet, so I wanted to give you a workaround or a way to manage your music alarm. So you'll see that in a couple of days here, and I hope you'll stay watching on the channel. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.